Welcome to The Secrets of Success. By following the proven techniques of the guests who appear on this series, you'll learn that even successful people run into detours and failures, and how you can apply their success techniques to change your life.
You're now listening to the most unique show on radio, the show dedicated to making you a success. Every company has a culture. Is your culture leading to success or failure? We'll find out from our guest, Bretton Putter, author of CULTURE DECKS DECODED. Brett, thanks for being with us today.
Bill, great to be with you.
Now, that's an unusual title. We've been on the air over 30 years here, and I don't think we've heard the word culture, but not the term CULTURE DECKS DECODED. So can you tell us what is a culture deck?
Yes. A culture deck is essentially a bunch of slides or a document that describes a company's culture in quite a bit of detail. The first culture deck was placed online by Reed Hastings in 2009. As the CEO of Netflix, he'd got tired of repeating this to new joiners over and over again, so he put it online, and then a bunch of other companies like Asana, HubSuite, LinkedIn, and many others have gone and put their culture decks online. And that's really where this whole culture deck, culture manifesto, culture code started off.
Now, isn't that very nice? I mean, it might be very nice of them, but I would think a culture deck would be private material that you don't want your competitors, your enemy to see. It's great for internal people, and it might get out, obviously, if employees are impressed with it. But was that being overly kind of them, or stupid, or what?
Well, I think it was actually quite smart, because you can't copy somebody else's culture because it's unique to them. And David Cummings, the venture capitalist from Atlanta Ventures, his quote is really good. It's essentially, company culture is the one sustainable competitive advantage that a CEO has complete control over. And because it can't be copied, them sharing it is not an issue with the competition. What it actually does is it allows potential employees to self-select in or self-select out. Do you want to join this company if you understand exactly how it works?
Now, are you writing this book more for the employee or the employer?
I'm writing the book, if I'm inside a company, it's for both, because essentially I'm making the implicit agreement around our culture explicit, and I'm saying this is what the company expects of you. This is what you can expect of the company, and this is how you get ahead.
And for our audience, when we say the book is CULTURE DECKS DECODED. It's by our guest, Bretton Putter, Putter, and very interesting book. It's a larger than usual book, but it's almost like you're looking at a lot of slides and presentation material, and I think you'll be very impressed, as I was, and I'm going to be getting to that and asking Brett later on about some of the companies, because in just a few words, you know right away what that company is, what they're doing, and a couple of them right away, I said to myself, gee, that's a company I want to deal with. If they follow their culture code, I'm with them, and I'm going to be a client for life. But my question to you, Brett, doesn't this culture just evolve as things are getting done? Like certain people, they're going to be very quick with things. They're going to be brusque. Some might be, we might even call it a little sleazy in their dealings. Others, impeccably honest or environmentally concerned. Is that something you sit down initially and write or draw up, or does it just kind of exude from the person like a personality?
So yes, you're right. Culture does evolve, and when a company starts, the culture is essentially a representation and a mirror of the CEO or the founders of the company. What does happen, though, is as that company grows, the capacity of the founder or CEO to continue to communicate the culture on an ongoing way becomes diminished because they become stretched too far. So the culture needs a form of representation and a form of communication, which is where these culture decks come in really handy. Because if you read any of the decks in this book, any of the slides, as you said, you really get a very clear understanding of what that company stands for and what their values are. And this is critical in this day and age.
A culture deck, is that synonymous or another term for a company handbook with a mission statement? Would those two be alike, or is it really something very different?
No, I would say it's alike. Handbooks often go into a lot more detail of the nitty-gritty about policy and procedure, whereas a deck is a little bit more high level, talking about mission, vision, values, the way we work around here, etc. But it's not far off to say it's a handbook.
And was I correct? I think I read something in your book that you said only 1 out of 10 high-growth companies bother to define their culture?
Yeah, that's right. It's an interesting statistic, and it's actually from my own research. So I've interviewed over 40 CEOs of high-growth companies about their culture, how they've successfully embedded it, and how they've successfully managed their culture. But to speak to those 40, I had to actually speak to over 400 CEOs to get 40 that had done anything about it.
And isn't that amazing? Because I have a note to myself, what does this say about the companies? Because the mere fact that I'm hearing it so much as a radio host, that you've written a book on it, you would think somewhere someone would be getting into this on a higher level just to see, because I think just like when we make a friend, you know, certain people have your values, let's put it that way, and characteristics. And right away you might say, I want to be with that kind of person. They're trustworthy, they're honest, they're people of character. Other people just may not have that, and you may find you move away from those people. So I guess you're more shocked because you do this, but I was astounded to hear that, and I would think even if it's almost for show purposes, that they would kind of draw up a culture manual or a culture deck just to kind of be with the other companies in their group.
Yeah, I think it's going to become more and more important. One of the challenges is culture, for the most part, is invisible, subconscious, and intangible, and it happens below the surface. So it's not that easy to get your head around this complex thing, and that's one of the reasons why I wrote the book. I wanted to try and decode it. I wanted to try and demystify culture generally by breaking down these decks of different companies, because it is quite it's quite difficult to do, but it is possible, and it's very necessary.
Brett, at this point in the show, we'd just like to let our listeners know that our guest today is Bretton Putter, Putter. His book is Culture Decks Decoded, and you're listening, Brett, on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. I'm your host, Bill Horan, and Brett, we'd like to know, where can we get the book, and is there a website where we could find out more information about this?
Yes, so the book is available on Amazon if you just do a search for Culture Decks Decoded. My website is www.culturegene.ai, and that's where you can find out about this book and my upcoming book.
And we'll give that information later in the show. And anybody, whether you're on the employee side, which just knowing about this stuff will make a job a lot more enjoyable, and I think this is a fair statement, Brett, and you can contradict me if I'm wrong, this will make the odds of success greater for the person, because if it's a good culture match, I'm probably going to do better at the job. The job is going to like me, because I'm going to produce better for the company. I'm going to have a greater chance of compensation and promotions, and it's just a big win-win if we match up our culture with a company that has a similar culture. Would that be a fair statement?
Absolutely right. It's certainly a win-win. Most people have experience of working in a strong culture or a weak culture. And the strong culture, where the match between the values and the culture is strong, they enjoy it more, they do succeed, they've got better traction, better experiences in the company, and they learn more. Companies are designed better around their values.
Now, I'm a big sports fan, and I noticed some teams year in, year out just seem to do things well. Not necessarily that they win the major championship, although some do, but they will always put out a good product. They're not a kind of a crazy group that does what we might consider either crazy or irrational things. And yet other teams year in, year out will have the same problems. Players will leave. Players will argue. They'll have disputes with ownership. Would this be a visual for most of us of what a culture does to an organization?
Yes, undoubtedly. You get certain sports teams are really great analogies to some of these companies, because you've got a leader, you've got the coach, you've got the manager, and you've got either teams who just gel very well together, who don't it's not about their ego, it's not about them, they're all working as a team. Those teams often pull off the upsets and succeed. Where you've got real superstars who are not team players, that's where you often get this disconnect. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but it's exactly the same. You've got a group of people who need to work to achieve a goal, need to communicate, need to operate together, and the culture in a sports team is very comparable to the culture in a business team.
How, from the employee's point of view, how do I know about a company's culture? Let's say I'm putting in applications and I say, oh, XYZ company, they look like a good company. I've heard of them. They're doing well. Their stock is going up. Most people seem reasonably happy there. How can I find out if that's a good match for me? Can I just ask for their culture deck? Do people even do that? How would I do it as a person on the employee side?
So on the employee side, you need to be looking at any of the digital touch points of a company. But yes, when you go in for a face-to-face interview, you can obviously ask for the culture deck. But one of the things I advise is you're probably going to meet multiple people in the company. Ask them, each one of them, why they joined the company, and ask them to describe the culture. And if you get a similar why and a similar description of the culture, you know that it's aligned. If you get lots of different versions, you know that there is a disconnect there. So that's the first way of working out, A, what type of culture they have, and B, if you would fit in that culture or not.
Now, honestly, as I said to you, and we've done over 1,500 shows here, this was the first time I heard the term culture deck. So if I go to a company and say to the HR person, could I see your culture deck? Will they know? It sounds like the way you're talking, they will know what I'm talking about, right? They won't give me kind of a strange look and say, what planet did you come from?
I'm not sure all of them will know, but a lot of them will. It's increasingly, culture is becoming an increasingly important element of the business and of any business, and using a culture deck to describe your culture is the natural next step. So I wouldn't say all of them do, and actually not having a culture deck is not indicative of a weak culture, but it means you just need to go and dig a little bit deeper.
Now, when you wrote this book, how did you intend people to use the book?
So my intention was for people, if you're in a large organization where there is a culture in place and you want to write a culture deck, this really is just a framework. You can't copy anybody's culture, but you can learn from what the best companies do. And so I've tried to choose the slides that I think represent a great mission statement or a great vision statement or an interesting perspective on diversity and inclusion or feedback. And I've commented on those slides to give an insight from my perspective. And so a large company can use this as a framework, and a smaller, earlier stage company can use parts of it as a framework. Not every company has a diversity and inclusion policy, or not every company has a policy on feedback and failure. But you can take the bits that are relevant to you and start to build a culture deck using this book.
Brett, we want to find out more about how to decode culture decks, but at this point in the show, we'd like to remind our listeners that you're listening to The Secrets of Success on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. I'm your host, Bill Horan, letting you know that we'll be right back after this brief break.
I'm a college student, and could use advice about my student loan.
I had to leave school and go to work. Now I have to pay back student loans for a degree I don't have. Fortunately, I found assistance.
Back in college, I figured they wouldn't lend me more than I could easily pay back. Boy, was I wrong. Thankfully, I got the help I needed to pay back my loan in full.
Sound familiar? The good news is that student loan repayment options are available. We're the NFCC, the National Foundation for Credit Counseling, a nonprofit organization with member offices nationwide that provide comprehensive financial reviews and student loan counseling. NFCC certified consumer credit counselors provide one-on-one financial counseling and can help you evaluate options for making student loan payments, reducing interest, debt consolidation, or even loan rehabilitation. Call 877-406-6322 or visit us online at studentloanhelp.org.
Welcome back. You're listening to The Secrets of Success. I'm your host, Bill Horan, and today we're speaking with Brett Putter, author of CULTURE DECKS DECODED, on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. Brett, when does a company, do you ever go into a company and they say to you, oh, maybe that's a good idea, we should establish a culture deck? So they're up and running 4 or 5 years. They probably do have an informal culture that's happening, but they've never really put it down. Do you ever find something like that?
Yeah, that's very consistent. That's actually the majority of my work is going in and essentially surfacing the culture and help to define it. Some of my clients have a culture that they've worked on, but they've gone some way down the road, but have now sort of lost momentum. And others of my clients have literally done nothing and want to start from scratch.
Now, once they establish a culture, is that it? I mean, kind of like the 10 Commandments or the rule of law? Or is that something that continues to evolve over years? I mean, what may have been good in 2010, 2015, even 2018, would it be good today? Or does it literally change with the times?
Culture does change with the times, and that's an important thing to know. You don't just do your culture once and tick the box. You've got to go and think about it and see how it's evolving over time. As you grow the business, as you take new opportunities, so your culture will change. The opposite of that are your values. So if you define your values, they for the most part remain consistent, but the culture does change over time.
And Brett would like to let our audience know that if you're listening to this show, the guest, of course, is Brett Putter. His book is CULTURE DECKS DECODED. And if you missed part of it and would like to hear it again, or if you'd like to take it to your boss or an employee or some other people in your company, you can go to nccradio.org. That's nccradio.org. Simply go to podcasts, look for The Secrets of Success and this specific show on CULTURE DECKS DECODED. And it may be something you want to explore with your company, and it may be something that you just never thought to write down. What is the culture of your company? Is it sincerity, honesty? Are you environmentally orientated? What is the principles that people, how do they think of you? And you'll get some ideas because we're going to be talking now. Brett has various slides and PowerPoint presentations in his book. And Brett, one of the sections I particularly liked, I think it's a group called Possible. Is that a company?
Yes.
I think it's on pages 15 and 16 in your book. Would you tell us there's a little boy with seemingly a broken arm and a sling around his neck, and it says the driving force behind our 4 impact culture is to get remarkable results for our patients. As soon as I saw that, I said, I want to go there because if I'm a patient, I want remarkable results. Is that the driving force to get people to come in?
Yeah, this is an interesting company. They're actually a charity that helps disadvantaged people, and charities traditionally don't work very hard on their culture. But what they've done is do an incredible job of developing a culture that delivers. And they, as far as charities go, are at the top of the ladder in terms of results, in terms of the data, the numbers. Possible really do an immensely successful job of executing their charity. They work in Nepal. They help a community of over 260,000 people who live largely without access to electricity or clean water, all basic infrastructure, and the average income in the area is $150 annual income. People walk 2.5 hours one way just to receive care. So Possible is this nonprofit that does incredibly good work through their culture.
And there's a second saying that they have on the page after that: great teams bring the same entrepreneurial energy to improving their culture as they do to improving their product. And again, just hearing that, I'm saying, wait, if there's a team that's working for me and they're improving their culture along with their product, I really want to be part of that. And it might sound funny, but I just in reading those two statements, that definitely drew me in. Is that kind of what happens with a lot of people?
Exactly. They really have hit the nail on the head here, because people don't understand that you've got to keep working on your culture. You've got to make it better and better. But by connecting it to a product, people understand you've got to improve a product all the time. So connecting those two demonstrate the way this company and this nonprofit organization think about their culture. They're working on it all the time. They're investing in it. And if you work in that environment, you would really enjoy working in that environment. So you hit the nail on the head.
Well, you're actually the one who hit the nail, by having these, I really think that anybody who picks up your book, and even if they just look at it for 5 or 10 minutes, it's going to make them think, is this what my company's doing? And my company may be the company you own, that you're the CEO or an officer of, or simply an employee. And is this matching with my values and my culture? And if not, maybe it's time to start looking around that, if possible, to find a company that's a little more aligned with what's important to you. Brett, we'd like to let our audience know that if you're just tuning in, you're listening to The Secrets of Success on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. I'm your host, Bill Horan, and today we're speaking with Brett Putter, Putter. His book is CULTURE DECKS DECODED. And Brett, could you tell us where we can get the book and a website where we can find out more information?
Yes, thanks, Bill. The book's available on Amazon, and you can find out more at www.culturegene.ai.
Now, throughout the show, throughout your book, you mention Netflix a lot, and you actually have parts of their culture deck in your book, and I think it's on pages 20 and 21. There's two statements from Netflix. The first is Netflix culture, and it's simply freedom and responsibility. Is that extremely brief for a reason?
Yeah, it's extremely brief for a reason, because it demonstrates this balance between having the freedom to do what you do. Literally, you can, if you work and get your work done in half an hour on the beach, Netflix will give you the freedom to do it, but you have the responsibility to deliver. So it's that balance between the two. You can't have freedom without responsibility. And so I really like the way they communicated so succinctly and elegantly.
And then on the next page, right across from that, it's still part of Netflix, we seek excellence. Our culture focuses on helping us achieve excellence. Again, so simple, but if I'm someone working there, it kind of puts that right in front of me all day, that we should develop a culture that achieves excellence, not putting someone down, not discriminating, not trying to make ourselves better, but as a team, achieve a goal of excellence. So I'm guessing that's why Netflix is doing so well.
It's exactly why they're doing so well, because essentially with this slide, they're setting the cultural standard for the organization. The Netflix slide deck is 125 pages, and you see this requirement for excellence coming through repeatedly from them, and by having this as a upfront, in-your-face second slide, it demonstrates this is exactly who we are.
I think it's on page 25 in your book. Is this the company, another one, Nano Heal?
Yes.
Now,
yes.
What do they do?
They're a technology business. They're into using tech to essentially source and use data to predict self-healing using connected devices. So it's moving from reactive to predictive help solutions.
And I love the statement there that they have. They're saying very simple, again, probably less than 10 words. Culture is what happens when the boss is not around. Oh my gosh, that says it all in 10 words or so.
Really elegant, yeah. And it's true, it's if your culture is one of excellence, as in the Netflix culture, you continue to deliver excellence when nobody's watching. And it's about the culture that's in action when nobody's watching, because the boss can't micromanage you forever.
And I think that's just such a good one. And in fact, when I was reading this book, I remember back in my high school days, a statement that we had at the school was, character is what you do when no one is watching. And even now, years and years after high school, I'll be walking around, I'll see a piece of paper on someone else's lawn, and I'll say, I don't have to pick that up, but it would be a nice gesture to do it. Or if I'm walking on school property or public property, is it going to really hurt me to bend over and throw it in the trash can? And I'll do it. And this is something that stayed with me 40 or 50 years now. And, who would have thought that? But yet I'm picking up papers based on a culture that I learned during a 4-year period in high school, and who knows what I did after that. So very interesting. Are there any companies that stand out in your mind that you say there was a culture statement or part of the culture deck that just resonated with you?
Yeah, if you go back to Netflix, one of their slides talks about how, first of all, they pay above market rates to all of their employees, which means that they encourage their employees to go for interviews with the competition every year. And the reason they do that is because they want you as the employee to understand what your market rate is. If your market rate is higher, they will pay that, if not a little bit more. And I just love that example of, we pay more, we want you to not worry about money, we want you to just deliver excellence.
And again, sometimes it's so simple, it just puts it there. We're going to pay you more. We don't want to hear you moan and groan and complain about it or be comparing, but just go for the excellence. And if you've got 100 people doing that, or 99 out of 100, surely the company is going to be excellent. They're going to be happy. And the money aspect, I guess, will take care of itself, really, correct?
Exactly.
Brett, this was really invigorating and so interesting. And I urge people, if you're out there and see the book, or if you want to go to your library, Culture Decks Decoded by our guest, Brett, Putter. It'll just wake you up for some ideas for your company, for a company you may want to go for, or for someone else in your family. Brett, once again, would you tell us where we can get the book and the website?
The book is available on Amazon, and the website is www.culturegene.ai.
And if you wish to listen to a podcast of the show or recommend it to anybody, you can go to nccradio.org. Simply look for podcast, The Secrets of Success, and then Culture Decks Decoded. Brett, thanks so much for being with us today. We'd like to remind our audience that you've been listening to The Secrets of Success on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. I'm your host, Bill Horan, asking you to please join us again next week at the same time when we will continue our journey to success.